Number 1. So this happened to me around a year ago, when my family and I were vacationing in Louisville, Kentucky. We'd just gotten back from a boring tour of the Louisville Slugger Museum, where most of the baseball bats that professional players use come from. We pulled into the hotel, and when we got out of the car, these two guys came up to us and asked if we could give their car a jump start. My dad declined, saying that we just stopped for directions to a place we'd booked dinner reservations for. They looked a bit depressed as we walked inside, and when we arrived to our room, we decided to look outside. The two men had just closed the hood of their car after another man walked into the hotel. They pulled away without any problem whatsoever. Now we just thought that the man had quickly helped him out, and ended up thinking nothing of it. Later that night though, I turned on the television and the news was on. The same two men had been arrested after killing a husband and wife and running away from the police. The family had been stabbed repeatedly to death with a butcher's knife. If we hadn't gone on that boring tour, I might not have been here to share this story. So, vacation killers, let's not meet again. Number 2. This happened to my mother when she was around 13 years old. Her grandmother had just gotten out of the hospital, so she wanted to go see her. My grandparents, her parents at the time, happily agreed. The day was normal until they returned home. The front door to the house was wide open, and so was the garage door. Her father ran into the house after grabbing the hunting rifle he had in his truck from earlier that day when he was hunting. The house was ransacked, and almost everything valuable was gone. The scary thing was that on the floor there was an empty Coca-Cola can with some of the drink still on the floor. The drink was still bubbling and fizzing. Then, apparently her dad heard the screen door to the backyard open and two men saying, "He's got a gun." Her father tried to chase after them, but he lost them after a while. My mother was actually sick earlier that day, but had a sense that she should go see her grandmother. It's a good thing she did, or I may not be here today telling the story. So, as my mother would have said back then, let's not meet again. Number 3. A while back, my brother and I were going to get food, but we needed to stop at the bank first. So, he parked the car and left it on while he ran inside to get money, while I waited in the car. Whilst waiting, I noticed a man, early 20s, smoking outside of the garage area. I kept staring over at the car. I had noticed him watching my brother and I when we pulled in. Being a paranoid person, I got pretty sketched out about the whole thing. I locked the doors just to be safe. I anxiously waited for my brother to get back. At this point, the guy had walked into the garage and was slowly creeping along the wall, getting closer to me and the car. Not a second later, my brother got back, and I unlocked the doors to let him in. We drove off, and as we did, the guy watched us drive away as he walked out of the parking garage. I don't know what he was thinking, or what he would have done if my brother hadn't gotten back quick enough, but, creepy guy at the bank, let's not meet again. Number 4. A couple of nights ago, I was in my room. I live in apartments, and my window was open. I was chilling on my bed when I looked outside and saw an older woman of about 60. She had thin, short silver hair and a pink flannel. She didn't look out of the ordinary, except for what she was doing. She was just standing and staring. She was directly below my window, but for a while I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, and I told myself that she was just trying to talk to someone else who also lived in the apartment. So, a minute goes by, and I try to hear for another voice that might also be responding to her, but I literally hear crickets. Nothing but crickets. It became more and more obvious that she was interested in me, so I looked at her for a moment, still a bit confused. Slowly, I pointed to myself, then to her with a very confused look on my face. This really seemed to excite her, because her response to that was to aggressively point up at me, shaking her whole arm and then pointing to the left. She repeated this about 3 times in a row. This obviously really freaked me out, so I casually closed my blinds, then my curtains. After 10 seconds, I peeked outside and she was gone. To the old woman looking into my window, I don't know who you are, but let's not ever meet again. Number 5. This happened a few hours ago, after my 12-hour-plus shift at a hospital. I was being stupid and sat in my car for about 10 minutes after I pulled into my front yard, reading junk on my phone. After I got out, I walked to the mailbox before going through the front gate. And that's when I saw someone sitting in my chair on my front unlit porch. My first thought was that it was my husband, who had stayed home even though he had told me that he was going out with a friend. But I realized that his car was not there. I froze and shouted, "What are you doing?" And the guy stood up, and I realized it was the neighborhood weirdo that carried his chihuahua around and talked to it. He started walking, more like stumbling towards me, scrambling words together that I still can't think back at what he was saying. I started screaming at him to go home, get away, I'm calling the police, as he continued lurking towards me. He was about 3 feet away before I finally heard him saying, "My house is right here." And he disappeared through the yard. I called my husband, who rushed home and called the police. The police went over and determined that his medication was not working. I texted my landlord, who is also his landlord, who stated, "He's harmless, he's just off of his meds." Needless to say, none of this was reassuring. So, scary neighbour, let's not meet, even though I'll probably see you tomorrow. Hello everyone, this was day 13 of Shaf-Tober, and I hope you enjoyed it. As always, remember to like the video if you liked the video. Also subscribe if you haven't already. Leave me a comment down below telling me one of your scary stories. Or you can tell me which one of these scary stories was your favourite. As always, stay sinister.